Welcome to Rucks, Walls and Over Walls. That's right, it's the fans' favourite rugby podcast coming at you from your fans' favourite rugby podcast hosts. Yes, that's right, it's me, Dave, joined as ever by Rory. Rory, you know what to do. Say hello to the listener.
Hello listeners. Hello David. How are you?
Oh, hello Rory. I'm very well. I'm very well. In fact, Rory, I've had a lovely weekend away. Lots of rugby going on. What can I complain about?
You'll find something.
There's plenty I will be complaining about. But outside of this podcast, contents that's going to follow, nothing to complain about whatsoever. How about you, Rory? How has your weekend been? How has your week been?
Lovely weekend. Just very chilled, watching rugby, enjoying the sunshine, and dreading going back to work. But I've got over that hurdle by going back to work today, so it's fine.
Yes, I've only got a couple of weeks left of my extended paternity leave. So I've been enjoying what has felt like a little taster session of what retirement's like, and retirement is going to treat me just fine, Rory, and I'm dreading
that civil service pension, though. Baby.
Not that the listener knows that I'm a civil servant at all. Rory's slowly doxing my life. That's fine. There's plenty of us. You won't be able to find me. And I'm not looking forward to that at all. And I think there's also an apology owed in this section of the podcast, Rory, because last week when I listened back to the podcast, our banter section, that is diarised at the start of each podcast, was poor, Rory. It was poor. We did not it was lackluster. We did not do ourselves justice. I even, upon the editing, I left in a little section where I was telling off the dog. So, yeah, apologies to the listener for that. Was not our finest 5 minutes. And I also have been told by yourself, Rory, that I've been called out on my Welsh pronunciation.
You have.
So please do correct my mistake and appease the Welsh listeners who have quite rightly called me out on this personally.
Yes, well, it was in the 20 under 20, David, and you rightly identified a young man playing for Bristol in the youth. In the youth section, playing at lock. Incorrectly, though, you described him as Ocean Williams. Ocean Williams is a California surfer. The correct Welsh pronunciation is Oshan. I didn't point it out at the time because, just for reasons of letting it flow and not because I didn't immediately spot it with my innate ability to speak Welsh. It was pointed out by cousin Griff, my uncle Robert, and I was then later castigated by my Welsh partner. So, joint apologies from the pod for David getting his pronunciation wrong and for me not picking it up in the moment.
Yes, apologies.
We will strive to do better.
Yes, apologies for butchering a traditionally Welsh name. I'm going to assume.
What would make it traditional?
But let's face it, with everything that's going on in the world, it's just a drop in the ocean. Do you like that, Rory? Do you like that?
Lovely. That's great podding, that. Great podding.
And with that, we are redeemed, listener. We are redeemed. But it doesn't stop there, because this podcast, we're doing a bit of, bit of this, bit of that, bit of everything. We're going to do a little bit of a news section, a few things to talk about there. We're going to talk Champions Cup, round of 16. We can't not talk about that. I've got a little game that I'm going to test Rory on. It's going to be called What a Ranker. What a Ranker, Rory. Just to be very clear,
yes.
Spelt with an R.
I've enjoyed all the games you've come up with so far, so I look forward to being rubbish at this one as well.
I'm hopeful that this may be more Rory friendly, but we shall see. And then we'll do a little preview of the Women's Six Nations that kicks off very, very soon. And to me, Rory, that feels like a splendid redemption pod for last week's mishaps. What do you say?
Yeah, it's time to make up for things. Let's crack on.
Now let's get going. So first up, we're starting with the news. And for the listener, if you're not aware, I am wearing all black in honour of the fact that I am deeply saddened by this news. And that is the news that Courtney Lawes is returning to the Prem. He's not coming to Northampton Saints. He's going to the Sale Sharks, and it's painful. It's really hard to accept that I have to cheer against Courtney Lawes. And it's a lot to take. It's a lot to take. But it's also bittersweet because the fact that he's coming back to the Prem is fantastic because he's my favourite player of all time. He's my favourite player of all time.
We love Courtney Lawes.
We do.
One of the best players to ever play for England. Certainly one of the best that I've ever seen. Just a fantastic player. And by all accounts, still been ripping up trees in Pro de Deux.
Yeah, and I maintain to this day, in the latter 7 to 8 years of his career, he has been, will continue to be, and always will be in my eyes, the most consistently excellent rugby player I've ever seen playing week in, week out. So, Sale Sharks, who have somehow, well, actually it's not somehow, through the power of cash, have managed to persuade him to join.
Money.
And I have also seen that he has said that he does have links to Cheshire through his wife, so that's perfectly understandable. He has said that the only 2 teams he would go to was Sale and Saints, and quashing those nasty rumours that were linking him to the Leicester Tigers. I think I would not have been happy with that scenario.
Question for you, David: how quickly do you put him back in the England squad?
If Borthwick hasn't given him a call already, he's made a mistake. He's mad. Like we've spoken about in some of those games in the last kind of couple of months where England have seemed to have lacked a bit of intensity or a bit of bite. That is something Courtney Lawes brings with abundance, and I think yes, we are stacked in the position that he is in. I'm guessing the 6 shirt would probably be where he still would want to be play, although a lot of people still think he's a lock, considering it's a bit bizarre because I don't think he's played in the second row for about 3 years. But hey, there isn't another back row flanker who plays the same way as Courtney Lawes, as far as I'm concerned. So
and also none of his successors have been either consistently available enough or consistently good enough to suggest to me that Courtney Lawes isn't a better option. George Martin, Nick Chesham, Alex Coles, all great players on their day, but often injured and done the job that Courtney did.
No, if I'm honest, I think I'll be surprised to see any player do what Courtney could do for some time. I think it's kind of generational, the sort of consistency he offered. Obviously, I'm well aware he's 37 years old, but he's been very clear he is coming back for 1 season to make the World Cup, 5th World Cup with England. And he's very clear that he wants to earn it through his performances. Like he is exactly the sort of player that I would want to have in a World Cup squad. So
100%.
I really hope it goes well for him. I think it's turned Sale Sharks recruitment from like a B- to an A, just immediately, just from one signing.
Yeah, look, whoever got him, it was going to be a massive signing. From an international perspective. Look at the job the likes of Dwayne Vermeulen did for South Africa. There's always we're guilty of it ourselves a bias towards picking the youngest players. Picking.
It's like picking 20 players under the age of 20 and putting them under the spotlight.
Exactly. There's always a bias towards potential over longevity. But for me, Courtney Lawes walks back into that team. If he's fit and on form, walks into that team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So it is with a heavy heart that I say, well done, Sale Sharks. Welcome back, Courtney Lawes. I do not look forward to watching him run out at Franklin's Gardens in a different shirt, but I still think I'm still cheering him regardless because he is an absolute legend.
That's fantastic.
I think for the Prem, fantastic news for the Prem, having a player of his quality back in the competition. And again, it's just another tick in the box about why it is becoming the best competition in domestic rugby. And I'm standing by that. Okay. That felt cathartic to me, Rory. It was nice to have my piece about Courtney.
You're like a weight off your shoulders.
I feel at least 5 grams lighter. Second bit of news, Rory. A little bit that you've kind of brought to my attention that I thought is worthy. Again, in the similar vein around kind of how Prem Rugby is a changing beast on a almost weekly basis. And there's this talk of some significant investment in the old Exeter Chiefs, which I know is a club that, has been dangling in kind of the for sale section for a little while now.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there might be a little bit of a nibble coming from some American investors.
Yeah, Tony Rose sent the message out to the shareholders that to expect an extraordinary general meeting, and heavily rumoured that some American financiers are coming in with a bid to buy the club. Tony Rose very publicly said that he sort of reached the limit of how much money he can put in. There's obviously a big opportunity, being in the deep southwest. Exeter Chiefs do have a bit more of a monopoly. They've got big conference centre, a big hotel. There's a more to it than just the rugby club. But it's a good sign that there's still more interest in investment in the Prem. We await details of who these financiers are. But what we do know is they are Americans, and more American interest in the league is interesting ahead of the next World Cup in the USA.
Yeah, and it is following a trend where American investment does seem to be the theme just in sport in general in this country.
Well, there's no bloody money here, so we'll get from somewhere.
You tell bloody Dyson that. He'll disagree with you there, Rory.
He's Singaporean these days.
Or Monacan. Monegasque, isn't that the word? For those who reside in Monaco.
If you have to ask, you can't be one.
Yeah, I think I can comfortably say, although I do get my nice subscription boxes, I am not Monegasque. And I'm still not confident that is the right word. But we move on, Rory. But yes, that is interesting. I do wonder if this is just kind of signs of the times coming where people are realising, there's this competition here that could be quite interesting to invest in. And Americans love a franchise, and they love not having relegation. So we'll see. We'll see what comes of that. If once we get some more news on that, we'll make sure that's shared on the channel. And then thirdly, kind of hot off the presses, a little bit of a more our news topic, and the sort of thing we don't generally advertise widely, but old Nathan Jabulu getting cited for a bite, which, no place for that in rugby.
Yeah, and Will Hobson, he's admitted it. Yeah. So there is obviously a bit of precedent on this one. The last one was the French player who bit Aoife Wafer, whose name escapes me off the top of my head. The general sanction is 12 weeks, but because he admitted it, it's been mitigated down to 6 weeks, which not great, but probably just about saves his odds of going on England's summer tour. Very bad news for Sale, because Luke Calendar, he looks like he's fractured his
season's
wrist
over.
Or forearm, so his season's over.
As is Bevan Rods.
Yeah. And Nathan Jabulu is out for effectively the rest of the season. So if Sale's season wasn't in trouble already, it certainly is now.
Yes, that very loosely prophesised chance of them doing a late charge up to the top 4 in the Prem. I think you can put the nail in that coffin quite comfortably now, if I'm honest. But, they've signed Courtney Lawes, so they're not going to be too sad because they've signed the greatest player of all time. I thought I was over it, Rory. I'm not. It's the worst news.
Come on, David. Come on.
I'll snap out of it. But yeah, so it's an interesting one about kind of admission of guilt, knocking 6 weeks off a ban for something like a bite. I don't know how I feel about it morally, because I think...
Well, it's an indictment of rugby's disciplinary process, which is basically the headmaster's office. Yeah, it's just ludicrous.
Yeah, if you turn up, look down at your toes, and say sorry, you get off a bit more lightly. Even though
I remember Joe Marler saying he got pulled up for not turning up in a shirt and got more of a ban. So the whole process it's so public school, it's mental.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they could modernise that. Once again, we'll add that to the list of things we are putting ourselves out there to be available for. More than happy to replace the citing board on Rucks Balls Over Balls, and we will be, if people turn up not in a shirt, we don't mind. But if you bite people, we do mind. We do mind quite a lot.
Yeah.
But hey, won't dwell on it too much, but a little bit of news for you, listener, and any Sale Sharks fans out there. Real mixed bag for you to absorb. But that's the news, Rory. That's the news. I think let's dig into Champions Cup round of 16. because that has been this weekend's feast for the eyes, and lots of games, round of 16. I've got mixed feelings around this particular step in this competition because, well, we said last season, we've said in the past, we've said numerous times about the structure of this competition and how this is a pointless round, but it has thrown up some interesting results. Should we run through the results in general? Because we're not going to go through each game by game. We've made that mistake in the past, and we nearly end up recording for 3 hours and then having to edit most of the interesting stuff out of it. Results.
Yeah, let's run through the results very quickly.
Yeah.
So, Friday night, Franklin's Gardens.
Mm-hmm.
Were you there for this one, David?
I was not, because of the aforementioned trip away for the weekend.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, you missed a humdinger. It was Northampton Saints 49, Castres 41. We will be going into this one in a bit more detail.
We will dig into this one very, very shortly.
Saturday, an all-English affair, Bath 31, Saracens 22. Again, we will go into this one in a bit more detail.
Another one I would like to talk about, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then 2 home wins, interesting. Carry on, Rory.
Next, Toulon 28, Cape Town Stormers 27.
Close.
Another home victory, but a very interesting game, very good game.
Okay.
Then in Scotland, played in atrocious conditions, Glasgow Warriors 25, Pretoria Bulls 21.
Interesting. Close. The South African team's actually trying, which is,
They actually did try. I mean, none of them got through, but they tried.
They tried, bless them. Bless their cottons.
And then down in the south of France, playing rugby from the gods. I don't think it matters who turned up this weekend, but on this occasion, Bristol were the unfortunate souls who had to go to Toulouse. Toulouse 59, Bristol 26.
Yeah.
Shellacking. It's a shellacking.
Yeah.
But if you watch this game, as I did, you'd have some sympathy with Bristol, who obviously down a few players.
Yeah.
And you just have to say, at some point, you just can't hold back a tidal wave. It's just impossible.
I watched this game with a few Bristol Bears fans, and it was very enjoyable as a neutral.
Yeah. Well, I'm wearing my Toulouse shirt today in honour of how brilliant they were.
Absolutely.
Then we head back to West London.
Oh, the battle of the out of form.
Yes, where not quite every Deloitte consultant turned up this week. There was some empty chairs at the Stoop.
Yes,
to watch a average game, if we're being honest. Harlequin 17, Sale 26.
Yeah, won't be dwelling on that game too much, I don't think.
Game of the week. 2 poor sides. I will give a shout out to Don Brandt's performance, who I thought was excellent in a valiant comeback. Luke Handick was very good until he snapped his arm.
Yeah.
And George Ford just sort of steered the ship home. But not a great game, that one.
No.
And then going on to Sunday, heading to one of your favourite towns in Europe, Bordeaux.
Love Bordeaux.
Where a mixed Tigers side went across.
It's almost like they didn't think they would win for some reason.
Well, they were right on this occasion because it was Bordeaux 64, Tigers 14. So they were very right to think they wouldn't win this one.
Yeah. And tough day at the office.
Yeah, I mean, again, not one really to dwell on because, frankly...
Less said about it from a Leicester perspective, the better.
Worth watching for Ben Tamifuna's try where he runs it in nearly from the edge of the 22. That's a moment worth seeing.
Yeah, that was prime Rory in my mind. That was
straight out the Rory Lane playbook, mate.
Yeah. I agree completely.
And the final game of the weekend, Leinster 49, Edinburgh 31, looks like a relatively comfortable game for Leinster. Didn't play out this way. With about 51 minutes, just over 50 minutes, Darcy Graham actually scored a worldie of a try to put Edinburgh 31-28 up. They scored like 3 intercept tries, 3 or 4 intercept tries. It was mad. I mean, Leinster just couldn't keep hold of the pill, but eventually the quality shining through and Leinster got home and hosed. But a bit of a wobble there from Ireland's elite.
Well, I think we've seen a few wobbles from the Leinster side this season.
Yeah, a bit of an average season from the URC. I think they're languishing in fourth at the moment. They had a fairly easy, quite unquote easy Champions Cup group.
Yeah, all I know is that I know what side of the draw I'd wish I was on if I was to be able to pick what side of the draw I'm on. Unfortunately, as a Northampton Saints fan, I am not on that side of the draw, considering I've got Toulouse, Bordeaux, Bath, all. Yeah. I won't dwell on it too much. But for me, Rory, the round of 16 for me, it's very noticeable to me that this, bar the one game between the two most out-of-form teams in England, home wins across the board.
Yeah.
Granted, a couple of close ones with the South African teams, and granted, Edinburgh made Leinster sweat. I still feel this round of 16...
Hang on. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, David, I would say the Saints sweated a little bit on this occasion as well.
Yes, they did. And I suppose arguably you could say Bath probably had a little bit of sweat.
I think Bath sweated as well. Look, I agree with you that this round is broadly unnecessary. We don't need it, and it just elongates the competition into more unnecessary games. And it's part of a bad design of the competition that I really hope that the working group between the leagues comes together and fixes. But I actually think this threw up a lot of interesting games this weekend. I think Northampton Castres was a much closer game than I expected. I didn't think Castres would go for it. They really did. Saracens, after their recent shellac into Bath, fronted up this week. Stormers and Bulls both going away, really tricky way. Glasgow have been very good in the URC and very good in this competition. Beat Toulouse, let's not forget.
Yeah.
And Bulls pushed them right to the end. And they were still going right at the end here. This was squeaky bum time for the Glaswegians. And the Stormers really pushed that Toulon side as well. Toulon were down to 13 men at the end there. They just about scraped home. Edinburgh put on a really good showing against Leinster. As I say, with half hour to go, they were ahead. So, a pointless round.
Yeah.
But we were at least treated some very good games.
Well, I will acknowledge that fact, Rory. I agree with you. It is a pointless round, but at least we have some good games to talk about. And if there's nothing we don't like to talk about, Rory, it's some good games of rugby. So let's do a couple of deep dives into some of those games. I think you mentioned at the start there, the Northampton Saints versus Castres game, I think is worthy of a bit of a further analysis from our fine selves.
Can I posit something to you on this one, David?
Please.
Had Castres been able to keep hold of their discipline even a bit more than they did in this game, are you 100% certain Northampton get through this one?
No, not at all. Considering they had 3 yellow cards, they were ahead at half time. They rode out. Well, they managed their yellow cards really well. In fact, so I think had that not happened, had they kept their heads and not tried to take off a few blonde-haired heads on the day, I think they may well have. But I also wonder whether that they were playing with anger almost. You can tell there was a physicality to the way Castres came to play.
The defence was.
It was brutal.
Enormous.
It was brutal. But I do wonder that it's because of that level of passion they were playing with, which is why they conceded so many penalties and were hot-headed. That's why it was so close. So had they not come with that and they didn't concede those penalties, perhaps they wouldn't have fronted up as well as they did against the Saints side. And scared, let's face it, in the first half, they absolutely shell-shook that Saints side. They're in the lead at half-time. Because I don't think Saints expected this Castres team to turn up the way they did. Because we played them twice last year. I think once at this exact same stage and in the groups. Both times comfortable victories for Northampton. So I don't feel... maybe a bit of complacency from a Northampton perspective. I don't know. It's similar to what we saw when Newcastle came in the first round of the Prem after the Six Nations. Had a similar-ish feel to that.
I wanted to kind of marry those two performances up a little bit, David, because two wins in those two games, but two tight wins. And I've got to say, two less than convincing performances from Northampton since the Six Nations. Now, I know that there's obviously injuries. There were obviously injuries in this game. I think Ram went off quite early, didn't he?
Yeah. And he was looking quite dangerous as well, to be fair.
He was. But is there anything in the back of your head that's thinking, does something feel a little bit off at the moment? We're not quite performing. I mean, the real striking thing for me watching this, and again, it was similar in the Newcastle game, it was just quite how poor some of the skills and handling, how kind of clunky Saints looked.
So yes and no. So the green-eyed optimist and kind of one-eyedness in me is thinking we've played 3 games since Six Nations, we've won all 3, and we've not been playing our best rugby. I think we've only played about 20 minutes of what I would call Saints rugby. Other than that, it's not been anywhere near the level we've come to expect, yet we've still walked away with 3 wins. So on one hand, they always say that championship winning teams still find ways to win when they're not playing at their best. Is that what Northampton are currently in? They're not playing at their best, but they're still finding ways to win. So that's the optimistic, probably very biased view in my head. The tempted neutrality that I try to apply, I am worried, because what makes Northampton so dangerous to play against from an opposition's perspective is that fear of them, the unpredictable and the shapes they create, and the fact that they can score from anywhere. I don't feel like what we're seeing at the moment is necessarily that. I think we're really grinding out victories, and we're really having to do some hard yards to get to the points we're getting, where in the past it felt like we could unlock most defences almost with ease at times. Don't feel like we got that yet.
I've got to be... I mean, Archie McParland, friend of the pod, we're a big fan. I think he's got bags of potential, and I think he's got all the skills in there. Tony Bellew, one of the signs of the seasons in the Prem, particularly at the start of the season, was absolutely outstanding for Saints. But it doesn't feel like it's quite marrying up. I mean, Archie threw, several interceptions. Well, certainly,
I know you were kind enough to message me during the game to ask, is he going to pass any more interceptions? I would argue
two tries given away with interceptions, and it could have been a third if it hadn't been chalked off for the knock on.
I would argue the Tyler Ardron one shouldn't have stood because he was a mile offside. I don't care who you are. He was a mile offside.
What I would say to you're right, he was offside. But what I would say is a more experienced head, or you've already thrown one, and I know Saints like to play wide and throw wide passes. You've seen how aggressive the Castres defence is. It was continuing to throw those kind of wide passes off the base of the ruck, that flat to the line, not asking for trouble.
It was naive, I'd say. It was probably a bit naive. It's a little bit. I'd say Phil Dowson is very clear that the Northampton Saints DNA is about not being afraid to make mistakes and to try things. And I think what we're seeing here is what happens when it doesn't necessarily go right. I still think
there's got to be a learning process.
There is a learning process, and I think you have to remember Archie McParland. He's 21. Like, he is going.
This isn't let's dig out Archie McParland because I think he's got bags and bags of potential. What I'm really wondering is how much is this Saints team missing Alex Mitchell right now?
Yeah. Well, I think any team would miss a player the quality of Alex Mitchell, and likewise Finn Smith. I think missing both of those players is probably a big reason why we're not seeing Northampton click as much as we've come accustomed to. And that is no slight to McParland or Bellew, because I think they're both having excellent seasons themselves. I would probably put out there that I think Castres came out and attacked that specifically, that channel, and I think it's probably something they've identified. Northampton, yes, probably should react to that better and not play into those hands, but Northampton are trained and coached to keep trying things that they think are on, and in those times and in those moments, that's what was felt was on at the time. We were just picked off a few times by a Castres team that were targeting it. That's how I read it on the day. Is it naive? Is it, is there a lesson to be learned there? Sure. Like, is it a bit Bears-esque from last season where they would just force things and, concede bucketfuls of tries because you just kept trying to force things that were never on? It did feel a little bit like that, but I think that's where we are missing the experience of an Alex Mitchell and the cool-headedness of a Finn Smith.
Tell you who else you really missed. Well, two players you really missed up front. Not starting Curtis Langdon and not having Alex Coles, because they made a right old mess of your lineup. Yeah. Even though you actually still won a lot of the ball, they absolutely made a mess of it. And I think is it Craig Wright?
Yes. Yeah.
Who I really like the look of, and I think he's got, again, bags of potential. I particularly liked watching him in the under-20s. I think it was an absolute wrecking ball.
Yeah.
I think having him in there and with the best rule in the world, not the two most athletic second rows.
Yeah.
In Lockett and Van der Mesht.
Yeah, that's fair.
Was it was asking for trouble probably to not have maybe Chenyumunga starting, for example, slightly more athletic lock there, because the line out was a right mess, and that made your starter plays, which obviously is a lot of what Northampton live off, really messy, and I think gave Castres a lot of really easy entrances into your half, which they capitalised on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Curtis Langdon, to a degree, probably managing him back. Again, maybe he is a bit of complacency. Maybe they thought, maybe there was just an expectation that Castres weren't really going to come and target this game too much. We didn't think we needed to start him, because he is still working his way back from quite a lengthy injury period. I fully expect him to start this weekend against Bath in the quarterfinal, if I'm completely honest. Yeah. Because when he did come on, it was noticeable how much everything just shored up a little bit. It was
really, really noticeable, actually, wasn't it? It was like all of a sudden it went from being an absolute bin fire to just
steady hand. Yeah. It makes a huge
absolute steady hand on the tiller.
And so I'm really happy that Curtis Langdon's coming back, because I think him coming back is going to feel like a new signing once he's kind of hits his straps, because I think he is that good of a player. And we've missed him a lot more than people probably realise.
Big opportunity for him in the summer potentially if he's fit.
Yeah, I've argued for a few seasons now that I think he deserves a bit more recognition internationally. But you know how it is these days. Like, sometimes if your face doesn't fit, it just doesn't happen for you. But hey, it means we get more rugby from him at Northampton, which I am all for. But no, I agree. I think line out didn't work. I think we missed Trevor Davison. Scrub time wasn't as comfortable as I thought it was going to be. Although I think Luke Green stood up well. I think
he did okay.
He
got a nice turnover at one point.
Yeah, I think he's, because he's going to get more game time now for the rest of the season, because I think Davison's out for the season.
Yeah.
I think Luke Green's a sort of player who could start to grow with the more game time, because he was a well thought of prop in the Irish academy, I think, and he's just one of these ones that kind of fell away with the demise of London Irish, and he's had to work his way back through various. I think he went to the USA for a little while, and he's come back. Kind of had to move around trying to kind of stay within rugby, and I think he was quite highly thought of in the Irish setup. So interesting to see if he gets, comes on leaps and bounds. I also thought Kundiona looked pretty strong when he came on for him.
Did look good.
Had some impactful scrums.
Yeah, I think Saints right now can't afford not to pick their more experienced players. I think it was the moment when asked to put quite an aggressive grubber through, and again it feels like I'm picking Archie Parlin, kind of messes up in the backfield.
Oh yeah.
Kind of misfields it effectively, and it gets hacked on through again, and Pollock covers the backfield, has to give away a 5-metre scrum.
Yeah.
And I think that was when Karavalevu just basically bulldozed Tony Bellier.
Yeah.
It was a nice moment to watch, because if you like those kind of players, which I do, that's exactly how you want to see them used. But again, it feels like they don't have the kind of coolness under pressure that you sort of do associate with them when the more experienced heads are there.
So I've got a theory, Rory. So obviously Lee Radford, the defence coach for Northampton Saints, has been kind of part-timing of Scotland. Obviously he's been away with Scotland through the Six Nations. Maybe Saints defence has lapsed while he's been away, and he's going off to become full-time Scotland defence coach next season. Maybe there's a gap there, and it's just not being filled properly. Because it does feel like that coolness under pressure, that that we saw last season, I think quite specifically, that kind of led us to the Champions Cup final, isn't there at the moment. It may come back. Yeah. It may come back, but I do think you're right. I think there's a couple of other talking points around this game that's worth talking about. I think whether there's something to talk around the targeting that was quite evident to Henry Pollock, it was quite blatant, let's face it. Like, he was, subject to a number of quite big hits. And I know we've spoken in the past, like, this is going to happen. He goads it himself. He brings it on himself. I thought he handled that from his perspective quite maturely. He didn't rise to it. And he responded to it on the pitch. So, like, a lot of people always call out how, like, his arrogance and that. I felt he handled that really well, and I think it was quite audible that at one point Furbank went up to ref and says, "You going to do anything about the fact that they're trying to rip this guy's head off?" Obviously, nothing happened. And I think the other talking point...
Sorry to interrupt. Brian Moore had he did a column about Henry Pollock and Matchroom. But he had a nice little comment within it, and it's not a bad column. It's not a hatchet job by any stretch. He's pretty in favour of it. It's just a bit of a general warning. But I'll read you a quote from towards the end of the column. On a bright note, as a former multiple winner of the Winding Up the French award, I'm happy to pass the mantle to Pollock, who, again, showed last weekend that he's able to live rent-free in his Gallic opponents' heads. Without doing much more than existing, he managed to provoke several unprofessional responses from Castres Olympique players, including one which earned Guillaume Ducat a yellow card. I can tell him that the niggle but don't hit back strategy is painful, but it does work.
I think the fact that a 21-year-old has been able to achieve that already, fair play to him. Obviously, it's going to be something he's going to have to learn to deal with through his career, because I think it is going to happen. But I thought full credit to him to how he handled it on the weekend. I thought he handled it really well. And I think the other talking point was, if the rumoured transfer of George Furbank to Quins is still on, Saints are going to miss him, because I thought he was a bit of a difference maker.
Yeah, the line for his try was world class.
So good.
He cuts through 4 defenders at least doing that, and it's
so clever.
An absolutely world class. If you'd seen Will Jordan, if you'd seen Chris Cullen cut that line, people would be talking about it. It was world class. To thread the needle like that through what was a really good Castres defence on the day. I know 49-41, it looks like it was defence optional. It really wasn't like that in this game. It was proper physical defence, particularly from Castres.
Yeah.
But that line was like, Chris Cullen at his best. It's superb.
And it's hard to explain, but like, there's subtlety to the genius. But it's just such a small change to a running angle had such a big impact, and it's things like that, and it's that like touch of class that if he is moving to Quins, as is widely reported, Northampton Saints will miss it tremendously. And I think he's shown quite quickly how much we've missed him this season as well. So it bodes well that the likes of him and Langdon are coming back towards the end of the season, but we are racking up injuries at a rate of knots as well, unfortunately. I think it would also be unfair to not give a nod to a few Castres players. I think Ambadieng, the winger, looked electric.
The try right at the end, which, again, a few times at that point, the game was gone. But it was a lovely little chip from, I think it's Batista, chips the ball in their own 22, and he gathers it. And he actually has the running style of an Olympic sprinter.
Yeah.
Like, he just looked perfect, like perfect runner. Like, when you watch a lot of fast rugby players, they don't run the same way as a sprinter on a track, because obviously you don't. It's just not the same thing. But he looked like a track sprinter. It was phenomenal, and he was a pain in Northampton's side.
Yes, absolutely. I thought
he was excellent.
He was excellent, and Karavalevu was just
unit. I thought he was excellent. I thought Papali'i was really impactful for the time that he was on the pitch. I thought Arata, when he came on, was electric,
rapid,
absolutely rapid. I thought the fullback Shabuni was really good. I thought I really like Castres. I've been to watch rugby there a couple of times. I really like Castres Town. I really like Castres rugby team. They punch so far above their weight in the French leagues. They've never really been much of a force in Europe. They've really focused on the top 14. But I liked a lot about this Castres performance. I even liked the fact that it was niggly and angry, because at the very least, you really got a sense that they wanted this one. And that's how these kind of, that's how you actually used to get excited about European competition.
I think that's the most unexpected thing, is that a Castres Olympique side turned up in a knockout game as the away side and came with anger, they came with purpose, they came to win, I think. And what more could we be asked for? Is we've judged this competition in the past about teams really giving up on it. So full credit to the Castres side, coaching teams, the fans. From the reports I've seen from the Saints fan groups, is that the fans were excellent as well. So overall, a fantastic advert for what is the most pointless round of knockout rugby in European rugby. So fair play. But hey, as a Saints fan, another gritty win. We're through to the next round, and we get the lovely joy of going to play another Prem rugby side in the quarterfinals. Lovely. Speaking of which, I think that's the other game I want to dive into this week, Rory, is the Bath versus Saracens game. Because I think, again, this was another one that there was a few other, undertones to this game, kind of with how Saracens were just obliterated just a few weeks prior. It being in the Champions Cup, Bath seemingly coming into some good form, and not really knowing whether it was going to be any different this week compared to the one a couple of weeks ago. And I will say quite happily that Saracens came to play, and they fronted up big time.
Yeah. It couldn't have, well, we said at the time that a couple of weeks ago, Bath gave Sarries a shellacking in the end.
Yeah.
Sarries didn't play that badly in that game.
No, yeah, I remember you saying that actually Saracens played well, but Bath just were clinical.
The problem was Bath couldn't stop scoring tries in that game. Saracens just, in the end, were just out on their feet trying to defend them. In this game, Saracens were everything you think of a Saracen side is, particularly in the first half. So, Bath start really well. Barbary's carrying loads of ball. Abana gets held up over the line, and you start thinking this could all just go one way again. Bath looks right on it. But then Sarries get up the other end of the pitch, put sort of continuous pressure on Bath, and Charlie Bracken, who was really good in this game, gave Saracens real tempo, which I think is absolutely what they've lacked. I think it's probably what they lacked in the last game, to be honest. You need to pick Charlie Bracken for me at the moment until Thomas Williams comes in, because this Saracen side needs tempo to get going.
They just look so much better. They look so much better with quick ball.
Yeah. So he scores the first try just before the 15-minute mark, just sniping off the back of a really good line-out ball.
With the biggest gate ever offered to him on a plate by was it Archie Griffin, who just left the door open and left the lights on.
Yeah. Burglars are welcome sign outside. But I mean, Saracens were so up for it. They were massive in defence, absolutely knocking them back. Their maul defence was enormous. I mean, you don't see many teams stop Bath's maul dead the way that Saracens were in this game. They were well on top in the scrum. Rhys Carre in the first half gave Archie Griffin, obviously international teammates, he gave him a torrid old time.
Yeah, I felt a little bit bad for Archie Griffin.
Yeah, I think Archie Griffin does have potential, but it's so unfavourable to be the third choice between Will Stewart and obviously Thomas the Tank.
Well, I think what is also unfavourable is that when you get replaced by Thomas the Tank, and then it just is so polar opposite, it kind of exposes your flaws a little bit.
Yeah, completely. It's unfair. But in the first 25, Saracens are well on top, and Guy Pepper gets binned for basically cynical play.
Yeah,
Saracens were so well on top.
Yeah,
and in that first half, they finish 10-0 up. How many halves of rugby have Bath not scored in this season? I would wager that's the first one.
Yeah, especially at home at the Rec, being nilled at half time. Doesn't happen. Yeah. Doesn't happen.
And then, as you say, Thomas the Tank comes on at half time for Archie Griffin, and the game flips pretty quickly.
Not the first time that he's come on and basically saved Bath's bacon.
No, look, Bath have built the Bath bombs for a reason, for situations like this, either to capitalise on leads or to change the momentum of a game when it's not going their way. And more often than not, it works. On this occasion, it absolutely worked. Once he came on, I mean, Beno Urbano does get binned at one point for repeated infringement at the scrum. I think it was, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I think there was a call that next penalty at the scrum, whoever it is, goes to the bin, and it was unfortunately Urbano.
But Arundel scores quite early on in the half. Really nice line. Maro Itoje got caught out for the first time. I think just massively surprised by what a good pass Charlie Ewells threw. Sort of a two-person missed pass right across the face of the defence. And Maro Itoje, perfectly understandably, didn't see that coming. And Arundel chucks a lovely line against the grain and steps past like 3 players.
Yeah,
I think
that's a lovely finish.
Yeah, I think it's like past Bracken, Tompkins and Daly. Kaluri just about catches him on the line, but he's by that point he's already basically scored the game, and that already felt ominous at that point. And then when the Bath scrum starts turning the screw, you realise pretty quick what way this is going. So Thokana scores again 5 minutes later, picking up loose ball after they dominate scrum. The physicality just completely switched. So 10 minutes after that, possibly the try of the season, arguably. So Saracens are inches from scoring over the line. It was who made the break? Foes Burke. Burke makes the break. It's a really good play. They get right up to the try line. Andy Onyema Christie knocks the ball on, basically in the act of scoring. Ball comes off the base of the ruck. He knocks it on. Russell feeds it off. Gets fed out to Thokana on the right, who recognises he's got the gas to go round, I think, Farrell on the edge. I can't remember exactly who it was on the edge. Someone Thokana was a lot faster than whoever it was. And he gasses them, sees 2 on, passes into Barbieri, who very unselfishly realises he's got no gas whatsoever.
Yeah, very smart.
Gives it to Spencer to run it. I mean, it's literally try-line to try-line. Great try, really good. It was very reminiscent in some ways of, you'll remember the Chris Ashton try against Australia from the Courtney Lawes, actually, was a big part of it.
Why did you have to say his name?
I know, just going to have to keep doing that.
I'm grumpy again now, Rory. Well done.
But it's actually quite rare you see an end-to-end try like that in that vein. Really good. And at that point, you sort of assume the game's only going one way. But then Max Malins pulls one back. Van Zyl gets a break in the middle of the field. A couple of minutes before, actually, Itoje gets a really good break in the middle of the field as well. I don't know if he runs about 60 metres up the pitch with it. And you could just tell he wasn't sure what to do. Just lost, just hoping someone catches up with him, because he slowed down, he sped up, he thought about the kick, he thought about stepping. It's just like, I'll just keep running and just hope someone catches me.
Like, there's a part of me that really empathises with Itoje, because it kind of reminds me of my very short-lived rugby career, where it feels like once a season you find yourself in a position where you're just not used to, and you're running, and you're running for a lot longer than you would ever want to. And then you're like, oh,
which is almost any run I've ever done.
Yeah, but you've got to make a decision then at some point, because the guy in front of you, like, do you run through him? That's the natural. Is it? Or should
My favourite example of this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I mention Big Davy Wilson.
Yes. Oh,
the break, and then the inexplicable decision as a tight head on the loose to try and chip and chase the fullback.
Yeah.
And obviously the fullback just catches it and marks the ball. It's a fantastic moment. But you really got a sense of no one's ever bothered to coach these players what to do in a line break, because no one thought it was going to happen.
It's those moments where props, mainly, they just become human like the rest of us, because they think they have the skills and are able to do the things they've watched on the telly.
Oh, we do have the skills. What we don't have is the pace.
True, yeah. It's just the execution is hindered by the physical.
I see it in my mind's eye, David.
Oh, for sure.
In my mind's eye, I'm Jason Robinson against Wales in the 2003 World Cup.
Yeah.
But the legs won't do what the mind sees. Do you know what I mean?
As someone who attends a touch rugby league for fat men who are primarily ex-props, I know exactly what you mean, because that's what it is. Every other play is fat guys who think they know how to run fast, but they can't, and they get injured and fall over.
People think that Wicked song "Defying Gravity" is about a green witch learning to fly a broom.
That's about
It's
David
actually about props denying the physics of their own knees.
There is no greater mystery to man.
But yeah, so Maiden scores on about 66 minutes. So Van Zyl makes the break up the pitch. The ball gets turned over. Kaluri dumps Arundel into touch. Really nice bit of defence. I think Kaluri's defence is really coming on leaps and bounds. It's quite physical.
This
quite
game,
physical in defence.
I thought he looked a lot better on the turn in defence. I thought his positioning was considerably better, and physicality, he fronted up really well.
You can see the effect that good coaching is having on him at the moment, and being in this kind of environment. So I think physically, he's not a lot bigger than he was at the start of the season, but he just looks more solid. He kind of, there's something you can see, like he just looks like
he's being
there's
conditioned.
No puppy fat on him now.
I would still argue Saracens still haven't figured out how to use him that well.
Well, I would more argue that Saracens haven't figured out how to attack.
That's fair. That's fair.
But on this occasion, so they get the line out on the right hand side and play out to the left. Really nice bit of play, and put Maynards in the corner. And you think, is the game back on? But then, Harry Wilson gets himself binned for a daft high shot. Ollie Lawrence powers over 2 minutes later. Again, a really nice line from Lawrence. Again, looked really, really good. Kaluri does score a very nice try. Steps inside well to make the kick easy. It's a clever bit of play, and the fact that he finished it was important because he nearly stepped himself into trouble. But Van Zyl then gets 2 box kicks in a row wrong, kicks short and then kicks out on the full. And Saracens' opportunity, because at that point it's, I think, 26-22 or 24-22.
Yeah.
So had Saracens kept the ball or got the box kicks right, they had a real opportunity there. But Van Zyl gets it wrong twice in a row, poorly. And Arundel finishes off at the end after Bath decided to go, 30 phases of pick and go. To kind of
the old Bath special.
A real Bath special, Bath back play. But what I think is really key from this is you saw a bit of what Saracens can do when they're on it, particularly what they can do with Charlie Bracken at 9.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot more bite in their forward pack, despite missing some key names. But the Bath machine just kind of rumbles on at the moment, really.
It does, yeah.
At the moment, the Bath bombs are the absolute difference.
I think it's that squad depth and that bench.
It's not a groundbreaking observation. We wouldn't be the first to make it, but it looks like it's going to be very tricky for anyone to keep up with them for 80 minutes. At least certainly very tricky for any Prem team to keep up with them for 80 minutes.
So a question to you, Rory, is: do we think this Bath side is, all being well, the best equipped Prem side to take on the likes of Toulouse, Bordeaux, Leinster, Glasgow? Can we see them realistically challenging them?
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, I think so. I mean, obviously, it can only be one of Bath or Northampton. I don't expect Sale to get any further in the tournament. Obviously, after this weekend, but I would love it if it had been that Bath and Northampton weren't playing each other this weekend. I'd like to have seen both get the opportunity to get through to the semi-finals. But at least we know that one English team will certainly be in the semi-finals.
Yeah. Of
those two sides, as of this minute, having watched them over the last 2 or 3 weeks, Bath are the best equipped. Northampton are suffering from injuries. I think they don't feel quite where they were towards the start of the season. And I think particularly having lost Trevor Davison, and having lost Alex Coles,
and that Bath set piece.
Well, and that Bath, I just basically think I don't think Northampton's type 5 is strong enough at the moment to go all the way. And it's a strong metaphor because they got Van der Mesch and incredibly strong. But I feel like without Alex Coles in there, the locks become quite one-dimensional with Van der Mesch and a Lockett or a Prowse. The scrum's not quite strong enough. The line-out's not quite good enough. the general sense of the attacking play is just not quite there at the moment. They don't have that kind of Northampton at their best are sort of telepathic in attack. It doesn't quite feel like that at the moment for me.
Yeah,
Bath, they're not as entertaining to watch. Let's make no bones about it. And we've been very honest about that on the podcast, insultingly so, some might say.
So wonder why we get insulted in their fan groups.
Yeah, I know. But ultimately, I think they're equipped enough to cope with the best packs in the league. I think they can beat Leinster's pack. I think they can go toe-to-toe with Bordeaux and Toulouse's packs and Glasgow's pack. And they've got in Finn Russell, in Jomo Lawrence, in Arundel, in Carreras. They've got magic in the back line that is probably enough to get you over the line in the big games, where it's often just a score in it.
Yeah.
They've got players who can take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Whether they will or not, we'll see. But they probably are the best equipped too.
Yeah, and I think the other... Well, I don't want to spoil the quarter-final predictions, but the other potential problem for Northampton Saints is that I'm going to the game, and the last few times I've been to watch Northampton Saints play in Bath, we've lost, I think, every time I've been there, and the one time I've not been there is the one time we've won. So that's not.
So what you're saying is you're plotting their downfall yourself.
What I'm saying is, what am I saying? I'm cursed, Rory. I'm cursed, and maybe this weekend, I will rid myself of that curse. But yeah, well, before we move on to the quarterfinal predictions, are there any other talking points from any of the other games you wish to bring forward for the listener to enjoy before we do our quarterfinal predictions?
No, I mean, look, I would say I think Leicester always know a tricky time going to Bordeaux regards to the team they picked, but not taking your frontline props against that team is tantamount to a mid-defeat. I think they're the ones I'm most disappointed in because they've been going really well in the Prem. They're in really good form. I'm not saying they would have definitely gone down and beaten Bordeaux, but I'm not sure they gave it their best shit.
Yeah, could have.
Not picking Billy Searle, not picking Will Wand.
Well, it felt a little bit like a white flag being flown. When it'd be nice if they at least tried. And
let's be realistic, the result does show that.
Yeah, it does. And at least on Bristol's behalf, they tried.
Look, Bristol gave a great go. They started off really well. The tries they scored, particularly Noah Hayward's try, were excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent tries. It's just Toulouse scored a lot more excellent tries.
A hell of a lot more excellent tries.
Huge number more excellent tries. Look, Toulouse in that form will beat anyone.
Yeah.
But I thought Bristol had a real crack at it. And they just came up against a team with the likes of, Gorges was phenomenal. Brilliant. Teddy Tomau was his balletic best.
Teddy Tomau was.
LaBelle couldn't stop scoring. Yeah. The pack were throwing the ball around. Jacques Willis was phenomenal. Alvaca was everywhere. I saw Alda Gary make a run. It's just one of those days where you're looking to get.
What we love to see.
It's just not your day. But I thought Bristol actually. They were their own worst enemy, no doubt.
Yes, in this game, they really were.
But they can't say they didn't go down fighting.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And they gave it the old college try, as they say. Let's move on. Quarter-final predictions, Rory.
Yeah. So Bath, Northampton on Friday. Well, I'm sorry, David, I am going to have to predict a Bath win on this occasion. I think it'll be an entertaining one. I think it could be a really high-scoring affair, but I'm thinking it's going to be something like 35-25 to Bath.
Yeah, before I bought a ticket, I thought Northampton Saints were going to, do another job on them like they did earlier in the season at Prem. Now I bought a ticket, I can't help but agree. I think Bath will just go out of their way to ruin my evening and just stick it in because. Maybe it's just because the podcast. I don't know. I can't help but feel it's something to do with us, Rory. But I do think it'll be a good game.
This.
But I do think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be close. But I do think Bath. They've just got this. They've got this bit between their teeth this season, and I think Champions Cup means something to them this year, and they want to prove a point. So yeah, I think we see that come through for a win for Bath. Next quarterfinal, Glasgow against Toulon. Two teams
this is just one to call.
Both run closer than they would have liked to have been. in the
Yeah.
round of 16 game.
This is a tricky one to call. I'm going to just edge it to Glasgow. But this one could go either way. I think this will end up being something. This will be a tight affair. I think this will be something like 19-15, 22-17, something like that.
Yes, I don't see it being too high scoring.
No, but I'm backing Glasgow to go through to the semi-finals.
Yeah, I agree. And then the next quarter-final, which is the easiest quarter-final in history to predict, Leinster versus Sale Sharks. Shellacking en route.
Yeah, we've called some shellackings wrong recently, but this one I'm confident on. This is going to be Leinster 52, Sale 12.
Yeah, I can't see it. It's just, yeah. I can't disagree. It just feels like it's just weird.
You're a Sale fan, go for the jolly, do not expect a result.
No, it just feels weird that that's a quarter-final. It just doesn't feel right. And similarly, this next game doesn't feel right that it's a quarter-final. This should be a final. Bordeaux against Toulouse. Now, this is a game I am not going to miss.
This is a game. I don't know.
Because Bordeaux, the home side, Toulouse in just red hot form, but Bordeaux also put 60 points. And what a feast, Rory! What a feast!
I'm on the basis of home advantage alone. I'm going to give it to Bordeaux. But that is the only thing I can base it on. And I suppose if you were being you could argue that Toulouse have been in average form in this competition. Obviously, you've lost a couple of games. So, on that basis alone, I'm going to edge it to Bordeaux. But, I mean, this could be the game of the year.
Yeah, I think it is going to be up there. And I've just got this weird feeling that this is where Dupont just kind of crowns his return from his kind of injury woes.
I could see it. But on this occasion, I'm going to back Bordeaux-Bègles. I do love Toulouse. I'm a bit of a Toulouse fan. But no, I'm going to back Bègles. I'm wearing a Toulouse shirt, but on this occasion, I think it's going to be Bordeaux 35, Toulouse 29.
Okay. I'm backing Toulouse, but I think it will be close, and I think it's going to be something stupid like 45-43 or something like that.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah. Oh, can't wait. That is your Sunday lunch served up with some extra thick gravy, Rory.
Yes.
So yeah, look forward to talking about that game in great detail next week, along with the others. Now, before we move on to preview of the Women's Six Nations game, Rory, I thought I'd break up the rugby chat with a little bit of a light-hearted game. Now,
go on.
Listeners of the past will probably remember my failed attempt at a previous game called Name Pending, and that sadly didn't catch on and never really stuck. So I've taken inspiration from other places, but another game that I'm calling What a Ranker. So, Rory, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 40 seconds, okay? Your job is to list clubs, players, a soon-to-be-announced kind of subject area to you in a specific order, in a rank, okay? You have 40 seconds to do it, and you need to do it in an ascending order, so from lowest to highest, okay?
Okay.
Your job is to get it in the right order, and you get as many points as you would do up to a point. The second you get it wrong, you lose the points. But your job is to try and list things in ascending order of their rank, okay?
Okay.
And you get 40 seconds to do it.
Okay, fine. Let's give it a go.
And I've given Rory 0 heads up around this. He's got
I'm hearing about this at the same time you are, listener.
Okay, I'll give you 5 seconds from telling you the topic, and then you just have to really guess as best you can in ascending order.
So top 10 in ascending order from 10 to 1.
Yes, top 10. And if this goes on beyond this week, it may become about players, it may become about something else. But this week, Rory, I want you to list Prem Rugby clubs from lowest to highest on their Instagram follow account.
Oh God. Okay, right. I'll give that a crack.
Go.
Okay. I'll start with Sale Sharks 10.
You keep guessing. I'm not going to tell you the answers till you've done your 40 seconds, of which you've got long left.
I'll go Sale, Saracens, Newcastle, Leicester, Northampton, Bath, Bath, Gloucester. No, sorry. Exeter, Leicester, Northampton, Bath, Gloucester, Quins.
Your time is well and truly up, Rory, and
okay,
you've made a right mess of that.
Okay, what was the order?
Okay, the order is in 10th place, Newcastle Red Bulls with 76,000 followers.
Oh, I thought well, I would have gone Newcastle, but I just assumed with the money they'd have shot up.
Yeah. That's why I went for this topic, because I thought maybe I might have lured you in with the Red Bull bounce, and it worked clearly. But yeah, they're on 76,000, languishing long behind the Sale Sharks in 9th with 115,000. That's a big difference.
Okay, well, I was right that Sale were down that end. Okay.
Then Gloucester with 122,000.
Oh, we're quite low down. There is a social that we're really high on, but maybe it's not Instagram.
It's definitely not Instagram.
Maybe it's Twitter or Facebook. I can't remember.
Now, the Bristol Bears and Exeter Chiefs were very closely tied, both on 163,000.
Oh, I didn't even remember Bristol.
Yeah, you didn't. So I've gone into the minutiae, and the Bristol Bears are next with 163,932, a mere 17 less than Chiefs on 163,951. Then it jumps up to Leicester Tigers with 195,000. Then Bath with 199,000. Saracens with 200,000. Northampton Saints with 211,000. Then Harlequins with 308,000 Instagram followers. Those Deloitte contractors sure come with followers, Rory.
PR firms all over the shop, isn't it?
So yeah, that's what a ranker, Rory, and I have a feeling that might be falling into the same bin as name pending, but we'll give it a try.
We'll give it a go. I mean,
go.
Socials is more your speed than mine, David. So you've not played it exactly into my hands there.
I've got another idea for next week. It'll be player based, and hopefully give you a bit more of a chance, a bit more of an open selection pool, perhaps. But yeah, that was what a ranker. And what a ranker I feel. So, obviously, Rory, we've had a long period of time talking about the men's Six Nations competition. And
yes.
we've gone through the doldrums as England fans. But thankfully, the Red Roses are here to lift our national spirits and restore national pride in the sport we love in the Women's Six Nations. So it's just worthwhile that we just give it a little preview. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, we're a big fan of the Women's Six Nations. It was extremely entertaining last year.
Fantastic last year. And this year, we're just as excited. And I think the question, quite simply, Rory, is what do we expect of this year's tournament? I know there is kind of high expectations for the Red Roses to go and repeat past success, but we have to acknowledge the fact that there has been some churn to the Red Roses squad. There's been some injuries to the likes of Tatiana Hurd and a few players who are kind of celebrating pregnancies, and kind of we're going to see some new faces, some new names. And I think what we saw in the World Cup is some of the other nations involved in the Six Nations have been turning a couple of corners, been getting better. I think the competitiveness of this competition may be getting a bit closer. So what are your expectations and thoughts and feelings about this year's iteration of the Women's Six Nations?
Well, the long shot is I still expect the Red Roses to go ahead and win this year's competition, despite the churn, despite the new faces. It's a much younger feel to the squad. There's some debutants there. But they're still the strongest squad there. They're still the strongest coaching team. The likes of Emily Scarrett coming in to coach the team as well. Yeah. Be interesting to see some more female coaches being involved in the line. I know it's a big push. Sarah Hunter's now the defence coach as well. So the Red Roses will be an interesting outfit. They'll be interested to see how they kind of adapt their style with the new players in there. But ultimately, still expect them to come out on top. But that being said, I'm not discounting the French and I'm not discounting the Irish this year. No. Both of whom I think have got very strong claims. I expect Scotland to be very competitive in a lot of these games. Mm-hmm. They've got some really excellent players, more players playing in the women's Prem than ever before as well. And I think Wales will be closer. And I think Italy will be closer as well. Italy have got one of the stronger player pools in the competition. Wales, I think, have got a more settled coaching team. They've had more time under Sean Lynn. They've had more opportunity to set their standards. More players playing in the Prem, particularly in Gloucester. So whilst I don't expect there to be lots of shocks, I do expect some very competitive matches. I think it's probably still a bit of a best of the rest. I still expect the Red Roses to, if not comfortably, relatively comfortably win this year's tournament.
Yeah.
But don't entirely discount the French and don't entirely discount the Irish.
No, I think the Irish are the ones to watch for me in terms of... So obviously, they've got the harsh draw of having that first game against the Red Roses at the Allianz, which from all accounts I'm hearing strong ticket sales, which is really good to hear.
It's getting close to a sellout.
Yeah, which is fantastic. But I have a feeling... So 2-3 years ago, I was really uninspired by the Irish women's side. I felt like they weren't in any way, shape or form kind of looking like any sort of threat to kind of anyone. But I think in the last 18 months or so, you can see what they're doing. They've built up quite a young core, and there's a number of really good young players coming through. I think especially their back line is really quite exciting. So I have a feeling that they could... They probably won't beat England, but I think they'll push them and test them, which is probably what they'll need in round one. And I think Ireland, outside shots at kind of second place, they could surprise France.
Up front, they've still got the likes of Jugang, Ifa Erin King, the new captain, 22-year-old captain.
Yeah.
You know, they're a bit of an unknown entity at the moment, but
I think they're a growing force.
Put it to throw up some surprises this tournament, particularly against France.
Yeah.
I'd like to see England push on from the star that won the World Cup and sort of, you know, absolutely keep the set piece dominance, the forward dominance, the carrying dominance. Can they evolve a bit further than that? Can they start really joueing?
Yeah,
because they've got the talent there to do it. It'd be interesting to see what team they pick. I think that's what's really going to.
Who's the heir apparent to Abby Dow, who obviously has hung up her boots. And obviously in Six Nations of the past, like for any fantasy rugby players out there, you always do two things, which was pick Ellie Kildunn and pick Abby Dow. Obviously Kildunn's still a pretty solid pick, but so do they stick with like Maloney McDonald from last season, who kind of filled in and looked really impressive and really powerful, or do they go with kind of one of the younger names, the likes of Millie David or Mia Venner, who have kind of really shone in PWR?
Mia Venner's been tearing up trees for Gloucester Harbour.
Yeah. And like scoring tries left, right, and for fun, exactly. So it's an interesting kind of challenge for kind of the coaching team to do they roll the dice and try and find the next generation, or do they just tweak and go with what they've kind of had as the backup for a little while?
That's part of 4 years to build to the next World Cup. So,
and they have picked a few young players who they may look to start blooding sooner rather than later. So I think there are some interesting angles from a Red Rose perspective, which will be worth keeping an eye on, I think, personally. And I think you're right. I think Scotland they're always an interesting prospect in the Women's Six Nations. They can be quite hot and cold. Like 1 week they'll look like, well, not world beaters, but they'll look like a really highly polished, highly organised team. And then the next week they can kind of fall apart a bit. I think we saw that last year where they played England, looked really, really solid, really pushed them for 60 minutes. And then the week later they played Wales and fell apart. Consistency is often the key with women's rugby, so it'll be interesting to see how they fare. And I think you're quite right, Sean Lynn, a bit more time with Welsh women. It's just a good competition, and it's good fun to watch. The quality of rugby is really good, and
get behind it.
And there will be a Ruck Smalls Overballs Fantasy Women's Rugby League coming out very, very soon. So keep an eye on the socials for that. With that, Rory, are there any other rugby-related conversations you wish to hold? No, you're rugbyed out.
Just excited for the next one.
Well, the next one will be coming in just a week's time. But for now, listener, it's time for Rory's final thoughts.
Courtney Lawes is our friend. He hates Northampton.
No, I'm not allowing that one, Rory. Try again.
No, that's my thoughts.
We've been Ruck Smalls and Overballs, and Rory's made me grumpy again. We'll be back again next week. If you've enjoyed listening to this week's podcast, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment, send us a text, whatever you want to do. And we'll be back again next week with some more rugby conversation. And maybe a bit more What of Ranker, because that went down well. But yeah, Ta-ra.
Ta-da.